See, yeah, it's still work. Yeah, but so for today, order of speakers, for the speakers who don't know yet when they are scheduled, we have 8, and we said 5 to 10 minutes each. Let's see, works.
All right, so let's start. This talk is about strong types, so it's a sort of back to the basic. As motivational example, we will implement a small web server. We implement a use case where a user wants to register himself with email and password, and we will reply with some status code with no data. To keep the scope a little bit more focused, this doesn't work. We will focus on the domain. For who doesn't know what is a domain, is that part of the software where our business logic is contained, and we don't have any external dependency from the outside world. The outside world is via abstractions. So let's start with the implementation. So we'll have a register function somewhere in our code. Most likely this is a member function. What should be the argument here? Well, I said a user, so most likely this thing doesn't work, so I will stay closer. So I said a user, so most likely makes sense as name for user, and before, the user has an email and password, so this can be true normal strings. Let's continue the implementation. Before that, we have the return type. I'm a fan of expected, and if everything goes well, we return 0, nothing void. Otherwise, like, I don't know, some API error, enum with all the possible outcomes. So if I want to implement this function, I have immediately some issues. One of the issues is that the user here, this email and password, what they are, I mean, it's just a string, right? So is this email an email, right? Is the password secure enough? And in this function, I mean the core of my software, so I have immediately problems here. So I have to ask myself, is these parameters coming in this function valid? Of course, I can also have some validation logic here. I can say it's just 2 lines of code. If the email or the password are not valid, I can just return an error. But it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, and also because it doesn't even respect the singular responsibility principle. And the issue of that is not just in this function. You can imagine that everywhere in the code that I have to deal with these 2 types, I have to ask myself the same questions. So I cannot think locally about these 2 types. And for instance, this is a good use case about strong types. One way to implement them is via, in a very simple way, via private inheritance. So an email in the end is a string. Again, I don't like to throw exception in the constructor, so I have this static function. Everything is fine and return an email. Otherwise, some sort of error. And I was thinking that this is a nice pattern, but Thomas told me that private inheritance is good if you want to make bad stuff with copy constructor overloading in C++20. I didn't even know about that. So if you are in C++20 user land, I think it's fine. Otherwise, you can just use the normal, normal composition. So the value here is just some private thingy. The function is the same, and maybe you can have some accessory function. Also note how this object that was created can be, it's not just valid by default, but cannot be in any state invalid. So everywhere where this object is used in our code base, I'm sure that it's for sure valid. I don't have to check for it. For the password, it's very, very similar. If you watched the security talk about a few months ago, you should erase in the password in the destructor to be nice, so hackers don't steal our secrets. And here, for instance, we can specialize these exposed secrets, so I don't accidentally log, for instance, something in a log or whatever, so a clear password. So with this in mind now, my user has 2 strong types, email and password, and I don't have to question myself anymore if this stuff is valid or not. I can continue with the implementation. So let's implement it. So most probably I have some user repositories like some interface to a database. To store a password, I cannot register the users twice with the same email, so I have this get user by ID. If something goes wrong, I just translate this error from some other API error. If the call is successful, well, I have to check this optional, right? If as a value means that this user is in our database, so sorry, I cannot register you, otherwise I can continue. We are not vibe coding, so in the database we should never store clear passwords. We hash them. So this compute password, what takes as argument? A password, but this is already a strong type. So about the validation now, it's very clear what is the type. But what should be the return type of this object? Well, another strong type. This is almost a copy and paste from password because they share most of the logic. But why this is important? Because at some point, I will have some validation where I'm passing a password, and I have an hashed password, and I have to see that if the two matches, right? And now, not how is impossible to mix the arguments. So it's impossible in this function, validate password, to make mistakes about the wrong types. OK, with this in mind, I'm almost done. We can still store the user in the database, I'm creating a new strong type, the user ID, maybe some sort of UUID, and finally I can store the user in our database. These types, the three types that I'm passing as arguments, are all of them strong. Despite being strings, it's impossible again to swap them or switch the logic, or for instance to pass a password instead of a hash password. That would be dangerous, right? And again, if there is some sort of error, I can translate this error in database error, and I'm done. I'm done? Almost. Note how what I'm storing in our database as ID, email, and hash password, but the user in the argument as an email and a password. It turns out, indeed, that it's not the argument in the first place was not a user, it's more a credential. And what we are storing is the real user. And now it makes much more sense. There is only one small thing. I don't know why this is so common to have this global enum for all the possible errors, but imagine the poor user that has to use this function and has to go through a switch statement of all the possible errors that are not related to this function, so we can be more specific here. Right, some conclusion. So what happened now is that from a single STD string, we have words like email, like password, like hash password, like user ID. So they give us a vocabulary. When we talk about a problem, we are very specific in the description of the problem. So these types also enrich the context where they are used. I know that this type is valid, for instance. I cannot swap the arguments. And not always it's easy to identify them. Yeah, it happens. So sometimes you make mistakes. All the code in the slides is available to this link in Codeberg. I'm switched from GitHub. And yeah, that was it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Elvis. Next one, Thomas Mertes.
So, hi, I'm Thomas, and I'm the crazy guy who invented a programming language. The programming language is C7. It's implemented in C, and it has some features here. And it's open source, it's at GitHub, and if you go to GitHub and give it a star, would be great. And now to something completely different. Who is dominating? So we think that humans dominate the world, but this is not true. The combined mass of all bacteria is much more than us. And they outnumber us, and they exist 1,000 times longer than we do. So this is a bacterial world, and we are allowed to be here. And we also think that higher-level programming languages dominate. But operating system and most basic libraries are written in C. And this is a C world, which allows us to use higher level programming languages. And now some provocative questions. So why handle a case in court if the defendant is guilty? Of course, the court might find out he is not guilty, and therefore it makes sense to have this procedure. And why do laws restrict the president to do good things? So history shows us that unrestricted power is dangerous. And, well, history shows that it makes sense to have a constitution, laws applying for everybody, and so on. And you might question, how does this relate to programming? Are you in the wrong speech? And we want fast programs, so we use pointers to arbitrary memory locations. We use memory management, which is manual. And, well, we don't do bounce checking, and we don't check for integer overflow. Our programs are like little dictators with ultimate power, and they are not restricted. But we are good programmers who foresee all possible dangers and take care of them. Are we? So, performance-centered programming, which is widely used, and very often it can be defined by this: I don't care about possible dangers as long as I get the results fast. But this is not the real thing. So this is the thing how people see themselves. So these performance-centered programmers see themselves this way. And in reality, well, it's more like I don't care if the results are wrong as long as I get them fast. And this is very often seen in programming, in performance-related programming. And this is more like this. So we don't care about the dangers. We don't care if you get wrong results. Just our programs must be as fast as possible. And is there still time? This is thought as a teaser, so in total it's a longer talk. And here we see what the operating system guarantees for us. So we have here, we assume we have two processes, and the process A is only allowed in this area to access memory, and the process B the other way, so they are shielded from each other. This is a simplification, of course. And, the process is also restricted. So, for example, stack and heap and global data are not executable, and the code is execute only. And that's for now. I have more slides to come, but this will be another talk. So, thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. So, and as Thomas already said, now to something completely different. The pragmatic prescription in 7 days to a lucky team. I choose this topic because I've seen this keynote of Titus Winters last year, CPP 24, and it was Fear in Tech, and the nice gist is it's more important to be a good person than to be a good programmer. And what Titus also showed us is about this stuff over here, this psychological safety. And so a team performs well if they feel psychological safe, let's say it in short terms. And so, 2 years ago, I read a pretty nice guide, so a typical pretty American book about, how to evolve in 7 days, and I like to present my gist of that. So, you have now the opportunity to learn in 7 days how to get a good team. Day 1, make contact. We used to be in sync, aren't we? And the first thing is, watch out for the bits of connection. The book actually says, this is the key factor, the biggest predictor of success in a team. If you always are looking out for these typical signs, if somebody needs help, or if somebody likes to get in contact with you, a sign, asking for a favor, seeming frustrated, and everything you have to do is to hunt for even the smallest bit. Turn towards your colleagues. So if somebody says, so, hey, that's a pretty interesting idea, don't look away, don't say, hey, I don't have time for that, or if you don't have time, just say, oh, sounds great, I don't have time now, but hey, I'm come back in 10 minutes, tell me about it. And another thing, day one, still easy to do. Most of you are working in a team where you already have some check-ins, 10-minute check-in daily, whatever you call it. And I just ask you to state this question every time. Is there anything you need from me today? Because this gives the others the opportunity to think about their own needs and also gives them hope that you will respond when it's time to. So, you survive day one. Day two, ask the big questions, or we don't really understand. Because everything has a history. Where is the project actually coming from? Typically, you have projects which go longer than you're in this project, or actually you also don't know where your colleagues are coming from. It makes stuff pretty much easy, or easier, if you know all that stuff. So draw a map, a mental map, or even document it to know where these things are coming from. Why did it felt better in the past? Yeah, maybe because you was just in the kind of honeymoon phase of your project. You started enthusiastically, you spent overtime to put some things to that, but over time it corrodes and it feels a little bit dumb. So what am I missing? This is the question you should ask you every time again. So make it a habit to ask the big questions, either in a retrospective or in any other occasion, maybe in the daily. So ask yourself, or actually your colleagues, what decisions changed the project in the past? Or actually ask your colleagues, how have you changed in the past year? This is an interesting question. Sometimes you get surprising results, or if you go a little bit more experimental, if you wake up tomorrow with 3 new skills, what would you pick? Day 3, and that's an easy one, but it's very, very powerful. Say thank you. Thank you. Because the idea behind that is focusing on the positive aspects. Everything which happens around you typically happens without you noticing it because you're not focusing on it. And typically there are 2 ways to focus on stuff. You can either focus the negatives or the positives. If you focus on the negatives, you will end up with this negative sentiment override. And actually, I have been here. So I asked for something, somebody did it, and I criticized it because it was not done in the way I like to do it. So if you have a positive sentiment, it actually prolongs your life. There's a study about that, done with 180 nuns, and the optimistic one, they lived for 7 years longer than the pessimistic ones. It's a great study. Check it out. So it's good for your brain, it's good for your body, it's good for your team. So change the focus, because we are pack animals and we do best when we cooperatively survive under stress. So make the invisible visible, hunt for everything your people are doing, and say thank you. It's easy. Day 4, give a real compliment. And if you think I'm now a little bit I can't pronounce that, it doesn't matter. Because it's the math that matters. And in the book I read, they give a pretty nice math. It says you need 20 positive interactions with your colleagues to balance 1 negative one. And if I'm in a bad mood, I'm not a diplomat typically, so I give easily a negative one. But then I need to say 20 nice things, and the more things you collect and the more you focus on who is your colleague you're working with, it makes sense to collect also not only the thank yous, but also learn about the stuff that people are thinking of. I skipped that. Because it's about cultivating compassion. So if you have compassion for the enduring vulnerabilities of your colleagues, so somebody might have had a burnout in the past, had a divorce, had some bad experience with C, I don't know what. if you understand their people's background and you focus on the positive things, it's, yeah, focus on the qualities that make them indispensable for you and give them a real compliment about it. Hey, you're really great in bash programming. I didn't know that. Hey, maybe you could help me out here. So it's the small things often. Take it as a, yeah, micro habit. So, running out of time, 3 minutes to go. We are day 4. We've got 3 days to go. Day 5, ask for what you need. That's not easy because we're typically trained not to be needy. And it might be in a relationship, it's the same here in the project. Sometimes you are simply, you don't like to ask because you might feel that you will be rejected. And sometimes it's even so, hey, it's so obvious, it's common sense, you should not ask for it. You should not need to ask for it. But nobody is a mind reader, especially your colleagues. So ask them. And if you don't do that, it might lead to contempt. So you're focusing on the bad sides and you realize at some point, they never do what I think they should do, but they don't know that you want them to do that. So, day 5, the pitfall. If you ask for what you need, don't pointing out the deficit, because we're trained not to ask for something, so typically we connect it to deficit, criticizing something. Don't do that. Simply ask for what you need and you will see very, very positive results. And if you are going to ask, timing matters, because typically your colleagues don't have time. So ask, when are you available? That's a pretty nice idea, and it works most of the time. So, day 6, reach out and touch. Well, now it gets a little bit weird. Maybe because this is not a programmer's book. This is a book about having a good relationship, having a romantic relationship, having a thriving relationship, having, well, you can read it. And actually, when I read that book some time ago, I realized, hey, I'm doing most of the stuff. I'm doing all that stuff, actually. There might be the one or the other thing which I'm not doing, but this is just 1 or 2% of the book. And, well, declare date night, I don't want to explain it to you. The thing is, I read that book, and it's all fully American guidance book, but it has so many ground truths inside, and I can say that with pride because I'm in a happy relationship since 27 years, stable. And, well, before you applause here, this could be you, because the pragmatic programmer, this is why I call it the pragmatic prescription. In the very first chapters, you have communicate. And that's the point. It's about communication. We have relationships not only with our partners, we have the relationship also with our company mates, with our colleagues, with our boss. And then, well, know your portfolio. This is about read the soft skill books too, because it's not all about computers, it's about people. And here, full circle, participate in local user groups. Hey, this is you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening.
So, this is now a C++ talk. So, how many equal characters can you put in a row in a valid C++ program? And we don't want to cheat, okay? So what would be cheating? Defining a macro and never use it, or putting something in an attribute list. You can put nearly everything in there. String literals, or even better, raw string literals, or comments. Okay, this is not allowed. This would be boring. So let's start with the hashtag. So we have the one hash, which takes an argument and makes it to a string. We have the two hashes. This concatenates two things and makes a new token out of it. And we can combine those 3 hashes. This is parsed as 2 hashes and then 1 hash. So no cheating. Can we call this macro? Yes, with the value of u. This makes a UTF string literal with value of u. L also works. I think that's all, but it's not cheating. We can use it. And GCC and Clang are very nice and friendly. Here you can take an arbitrary number of odd hashes, and it's parsed as above. I don't know whether this is valid or not, but it works in GCC and Lang. Okay, so 2n plus 1. The dot, there's one dot in C++. There's a surprisingly big number of 3 dots. All of these are different, but these are not of so much help. These are more cool. This is the C ellipsis and the C++ ellipsis. And for some strange reason, in C++, you don't need a comma or even a white space in front of the C++ ellipsis. So this is valid C++ code. It's a variadic template function taking a variadic number of arguments at the end. So 1, 3, or 6 dots. Comma. This is valid if comma is a macro. So it seems that there does not need to be something as an argument for a macro, but we need white space. So it's a little bit cheating. Without white space, it doesn't work. So arbitrary many. Semicolon, that's boring. So let's make it different. Less semicolons. 2 semicolons in the for loop. Some people say this was faster than a while true loop in the olden days. I don't know whether it's true. 1 semicolon, probably the favorite semicolon of everybody here, but there are even better. If false, semicolon, something. And if false, semicolon, true, something. I don't know whether this is executed or not. It's valid C++ code. And yeah, so arbitrary many. Colon. This is valid C++ code, believe it or not. But we want a lot of colons, okay? So we have namespaces, 2 colons, we have labels, 1 colon, but here we need a white space. If we remove the white space, this is parsed as 2 colons and then 1 colon. But we can do something else, namely digraphs. We need some token which ends with a colon and then the parser cannot continue. And a left angle and colon is a left bracket. So array is an integer array of size 1, and in the third line we access the 4th value. 4 is a variable in global namespace. So this is undefined behavior, but who cares? It's about syntax. This is valid syntax. So 3 colons. Right angle, totally boring. So let's go to left angle. With this nice code, the trained eye already sees here we have a left bracket. So what is on the right hand side? A lambda returning 0. On the very left side, we have a long int. So why do we have a cast here? Because this is actually an operator left in the namespace ls, and we take the address of it. So everything together, we take the address of a function and then left shift it by a value of 0. So the answer is 5 left angles. Right brackets. This is nice. We can continue this. Here I tricked you a little bit. This is not a 0, but it's a big O. And I just rewrote 0 of 3 to 1. You can exchange the variable name and the number. So arbitrary many. Asterisk, we already had operator overloading, so you know the answer is arbitrary many. But what can we do with operator overloading here? Defining an exponentiation operator, power 6 to asterisk power 6 is 2 to the 6. But why stop with exponentiation? Some hype operator with 1 star, it's the maximum, 2 stars plus, 3 stars, multiplication, 4 stars, exponentiation, 5 stars, tower operator. You can go on like this with. And each of these has a nice mathematical meaning. So n and each is very cool. This is a minus. It could be an underscore, but here's a minus. So there's a lot of minuses in C++. We have the binary minus, the unary minus, the arrow operator, but there are some unknown operators in C++, like the goto operator in x equals 10, while x goes to 0. We can make this loop slightly faster by making the arrow tip slightly more sharp. This is the armor piercing operator. It's 1 iteration faster than before. We can try to make the arrow longer, but this doesn't compile. Shooting from the left doesn't work. But shooting from the right works. And here we can even make the arrow really long, and this is now a really fast loop. Okay? So anything. Okay, question mark. This is hard. Okay. We have the question mark in the ternary operator, and I really tried to put a second question mark to it. I didn't manage. I found in this code, and you might say this is cheating. I said no comment, but this is not a standard comment. This is an active comment. It has some logical meaning. And the thing is, here we have a dry graph. Dry graphs are similar than digraphs. 3 characters together make 1 character. And question mark, slash is backslash. Backslash is the line continuation. So this means if your C++ compiler supports dry graphs, then the return 0 line is a comment. So in this case, this function returns 1, otherwise it returns 0. Okay, and then so 2 valid, 2 good, nice. And do you think that's the last one, the underscore or the undefined behavior operator? Any variable, global namespace, underscore small letter, undefined behavior. Function scope, underscore big letter, undefined behavior. Any type, int, something, underscore t, undefined behavior. Anything, underscore, anything, undefined behavior. So I would say 0 use cases for underscore, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So my talk is almost as technical as yours. The title of the talk is Why Juniors Beat LLMs, because I've had a bit of an epiphany these past months because I have a new colleague who's sitting there, Jakob. He's a junior at our company. And yeah, I've read a lot about, juniors. They are an endangered species, apparently. So I'm very glad that he's still alive. We've read all of this, right? Like all these articles about like juniors are basically useless. We don't need them anymore. We got AI. And funnily enough, all these pictures, usually they are AI generated. And this whole article seemed pretty much AI generated. So I asked ChatGPT, because that's what you do. When you do a talk today, you always ask, first you ask ChatGPT, why are you more fun to work with than Junior? Well, and it goes on, it says, yeah, because I combine senior level pattern recognition, zero ego, instant recall across domains, which means fewer blind alleys, faster iteration, and no emotional overhead when we kill bad ideas. So I said, so you're basically a robot. And I said, no, basically, because I keep the useful parts of being a robot, blah, 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 some other shit, and skip the annoying parts like blah, blah, and pretending confidence equals competence. Skip the annoying parts like pretending confidence equals competence. Isn't that exactly what it does all the time? So I said, that's bullshit. Pretending confidently that you're competent is your mode of operation in a nutshell. It's what you do. And then it says, yeah, fair hit, blah, blah, some other shit, blah, blah, and I said, you make me want to barf. And then just blah, blah intensifies. And at this point, I was pretty bored. So really, like, what is so much more enjoyable about working with a junior colleague? Because AI is quite useful sometimes, but I don't know, I still had this feeling it's more enjoyable. So I thought about it and I said, okay, for example, I can see it in his face when his context window is full. You get this feeling. The poor guy, like he grew up with TikTok and jump cuts and all that stuff. And whenever he asks me a question, I go on a 10-minute tangent just to see his face, like go blank and look at me like this. I also get to poke fun at him when he sleeps in and comes to the office at 12:30, which has never happened. I'm just making this up, of course. This is what it looks like. And he only hallucinates whenever I lace his lunch with some acid, which has also never happened, I swear. Okay, but seriously, you might have heard about this, the Dunning-Kruger effect, the plotting of competence versus confidence, and you get these nice, like depictions here. You got the peak of Mount Stupid, where you know just a little bit, so you think you're the king of the world because you know everything. Well, it turns out you learn a little bit more and you realize you don't know anything anymore. So ChatGPT is kind of up there, right? And perpetually, it never ever will get down from that place, it seems like. But, you know, all of us are somewhere along the lines, I hope at least, of the slope of enlightenment. And the cool thing is, when you have someone who is just a little bit further down below, then you seem like the master. So I get to feel like a wise old master, which is super cool. It's actually very rewarding. And also, I can give him all the grunt work, you know, the stuff that you don't want to do because it's just, yeah, you don't have time for this shit anymore, you know, you're paid too much for this. So you give him this, but it's, of course, to sharpen his abilities, you know, wax on, wax off. He doesn't even know it, but he's training himself to be senior by doing this stuff. It's amazing. And also, yeah, as I said, I get to have some perspective on what I actually have learned along the way, because I sometimes find myself on that Dunning-Kruger slope and thinking like, I don't know shit. But then I realize, actually, no, it's true. And I've had this effect as well. I don't know if any of you do martial arts. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm still very much a beginner, and I get my ass kicked all the time. This is also how I got this black eye, if you haven't noticed, which is a lie. Actually, what happened is, I have footage of it right here. This is what happened. The truth is, I actually did run into a lamppost this weekend, running with my wife backwards and just like turning around. But yeah, basically summing it all up, he shows me some cool shit I haven't looked into yet. You know, when you get older a little bit, you don't look at the new stuff anymore, but kind of like, okay, you should. He inspires me to go to meetups and give a talk. Like, that's pretty cool. I've gone to some meetups. He invites me to coding competitions, and basically he just reminds me of why I got into this field in the first place, because it's fun. He makes me hungry again. Like, I wanna keep learning, because you get to a point sometimes where you're like, okay, I know shit, I don't need to learn. But yeah, he makes me hungry again, and I'm very appreciative of that. And that's the end of the talk.
All right, I apologize in advance. I have not used AI for any of this. Sorry. And it seems we haven't had a talk about code design so far, so maybe I've hit a slot here. So, because I've been working on a little project that's inspired by my work, but I thought I could do it much simpler than we did it at work, so I was trying things out. And I want to show you part of the design I've come to create so far. And maybe after the meetup, you will have time to give me some feedback or ask some questions so I can actually improve it. And so let's consider dialogues. And it's about dialogues, but the structure is not so different from other things in applications. So let's consider a dialogue. And what we have is things like labels, for example. We have text inputs. We have buttons. So I guess we have some kind of reusable components. Okay, great. And of course, we might have different dialogues in a single application. So we want to be able to have different dialogues. And we might have different designs. So I guess we should have some separation of GUI and logic here, to make that easy. And of course, we want it to be extensible. We want to be able to make more dialogues quickly and easily. We want to be able to create more components with ease. So I guess the design should be modular and simple. I like simple. Okay, let's pack all these goals up on top so we don't forget about them and start on the design. So as I said, we want separation between logic and GUI. Great, but I guess they will have to talk to one another some way. So there will be some kind of messaging. And I think they will need some kind of data to transfer between one another. And let's start here. So I would say let's start with some simple vocabulary types like a button, a label, a text input. And I will need some kind of ID so I know one dialogue from the other. And I want to keep this really, really simple. Absolutely no dependencies whatsoever, except for the standard library maybe, or maybe one framework that I want to use. So a button would be just the text to display and maybe a disabled flag. I don't want all the styling here because that's part of the GUI's work. This data structure is intended to be sent from logic to GUI, telling the GUI what it should render. We are focusing only on the direction from logic to GUI in this short talk. So keep it simple. Okay, on the next level, I will have data types that bind dialog together. For example, if we look at find dialog, this could be what we see here. So we have label, text input, checkbox maybe. And I found it useful to have some kind of common structure that all dialogues have in common, because that enables later on some template magic that makes life easier. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, now we've seen the data, so what is the idea? The idea is that the logic can create, for example, a find dialog data and send it over to the GUI. Okay, how does that work? First of all, we need a receiver for the data. And so I would create a class on the GUI side representing a find dialog. So one dialog that we actually see on the screen. And it could look something like this, just for starters. And the important function for us here is the update from data, because this is the function that will receive the new data and then render the dialog accordingly. So it combines the content, which, for example, contains the text of a button, with the actual styling information, which only exists on the GUI side, which says me which colors, which fonts, which sizes, and so on and so forth. And of course, I will have multiple dialogues at the same time or at different times. And so I think it kind of makes sense to have a single, let's say, owner class that manages all the dialogues that are currently active. And it could look something like this. So the interesting part is now I would have like an unordered map. And what is my key? My key is an ID. So each dialog has a unique ID, very simple. But what's this here? Any dialog. It's simply a variant over all the dialog types that I support. And then we have the receive update function. So the owner receives the update and then dispatches it to the correct dialog. Okay, so we have a sender somewhere here. I will not go into the details of the logic, but the problem is that the logic and the GUI should be separate. I don't want the logic to have a dependency on the GUI, so the logic owner cannot call a function on the GUI owner. And this is a place where object-oriented design shines. So I will just create a little GUI receiver, an interface class, the GOwn, which can look something like this. So it has a virtual function, receive GUI update, for example. And again, what do we transmit? Another variant, which contains, what are these wrappers? These wrappers are binding together some data, like, for example, the login dialog data, with an ID. I don't want the ID in the data itself, because if I compare two sets of data, they should be the same no matter what the ID is. This is a different concern. So now I have my login data and my ID, and that means I can dispatch it to the correct dialog, and the dialog will get its data. Yeah, as I said, the logic, I will not look more deeply into the logic side, but to summarize, so we have super simple structs on the data level, which have almost no dependencies. We have a place where inheritance is really valuable because it insulates logic and GUI. We use std variant to transmit any kind of data, which means I'm extensible. I just add the type to the variant. The pipeline doesn't need to know about it. And I use std variant to dispatch the data to the correct Dialog. And with some template magic, I don't even need to extend the code that runs on std_visit, because it works generically. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I'm here for the first time. Yeah. My name is Umair, and I'm a master's student doing my master's from University of Vienna. And right now I'm doing my thesis under the supervision of Professor Helmut, Hlavacs. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me. Okay. So my thesis is based on making C++ easier for everyone, like to reduce the complexity and make it understandable for everyone. As you know, there are, a lot of things inside C++, like pointers. So yeah, it makes me difficult for me. Yeah. So we created a project. So it resides inside the VS Code as an extension. So there are like a bunch of features that you can perform on your code. Like you don't have to understand everything, read the code as well. So there are some features like explain code, optimization, generate test, documentation, simulation, and also the performance. So these are the features inside this VS Code extension that you can perform on your project. So if I go with this one and yeah, if I click on explain code, it will like take this whole simulation code, and then it will generate into an easier like natural language and explain it to you, like what is going on into the project. So you don't have to understand it. So here right now, I'm not sending every data to Gemini. I'm using Gemini, so we are not sending every data to it. I'm just sending the function call, the name of it, and some comments taken from here. Like here it is increment time, and on top it is like stop if all simulation are fail. So we are just sending these like crucial information and main information to Gemini, and then it is explaining all of the code over here into the snippets block over here. So here it is taking these small snippets and explaining these information, like what is going on over here into the code. So the next feature is optimization. Right now, I made this code to look like a garbage. It's not like readable. There's like a bunch of issues inside of the code that I place intentionally to make it work. To show you. So whenever I click on optimization, it takes this code and like give me some optimized version of this code. Like it maybe there could be issues over here into this line into the Discord block, and it will give me an optimized version of it. And then you can click on this replace button over here, and you can replace it, and then you can run it as well. And the next one is generate test. It's very difficult to write the test. It takes so much time. So I'm using a Google test in C++, which generates the test on behalf of this currently open file over here. So it will generate tests, and then we can run it into our local environment to see the number of passed tests and also the failed one as well. Yeah, over here, if you can see, it has generated a bunch of tests against this code, whole code, and if I just click on the run locally, it will run it on my local environment over here and show me the number of tests which are passed and which are failed. Yeah, over here, if you can see, this one. It ran 14 tests over here, and 13 tests got passed, and one of them got failed. And the next one is documentation. So the documentation works if you just click on the button, and it will generate the documentation against this code. Right now, it is only supported Doxygen format. So it will generate the report over here, and you can download it as well, save it, and you can view it as well over here. Yeah, over here. I just downloaded it, and then I opened this one, and it generated all of this Doxygen against that simulation CP file, which is open on the other side. And the next one is simulation logic. You don't have to understand all of this code, like what is going on, was the initial value in that case, and what this function is doing. So the next feature over here is like simulate logic. It just shows you then into like smaller steps, like what was the initial value over here, and how these values are being changed over the time. So yeah, in 6 steps, it explained everything over here. Like so you can track the values and function, how they're going. And the next one is performance. I had an issue with this one, but it will it shows compilation failed. Yeah, I just wanted to show you the real time what is going on. I just want to, if I run it again, it shows me again this one. And the next one is AI transparency. So, AI is, right now, everyone is talking about AI. So it's kind of a bubble that can pop up anytime. So you need to have a lot of trust into it, AI. So it's kind of a black box. You don't know what's going inside. So right now, I ran all of these features previously. So it is like just showing me the methodology that it took to generate all of these steps, and what kind of steps it took him to generate this report. If you see over here, it is showing me all of these steps over here. Like what is the confidence level of the AI into generating all of these reports. And the next one is code health, because as I told you before, I intentionally made this code unreadable. So there are some issues into this code as well. So it will show 0% if I run it again. So again, it will show 0%. I just wanted to check if my logic is correct or not. Yeah, it again shows 0%. Yeah, it shows again 0%. So I just wanted to check if it is okay. So yeah, and the next one is architectural graph. So there's some variables and then some functions which are dependent on each other, and some classes which are being used into other classes as well, and some variables as well. So this architectural graph shows everything inside of it, like which function is being dependent on which one, and what is the life cycle of this function, and what's the life cycle of that variable as well, and which classes are dependent on which one. So it just shows the dependency graph over here. So it's much easier to understand it from here. And also the last one is code suggestion over here. As I mentioned before, there are some issues, so it will recommend me some changes over here. And also the criticality level. Also if it is a medium one or a low one. So either you can click on the button below, and you can replace all of these changes which AI is recommended against this code. So yeah. If you can see, yeah. Yeah, and also there's a chat feature as well where you can ask about anything into it related to the code. So I'm just asking what is the value of dt over here. So it will give me the value over here by reading the code from here. So. And also, we can track the value as well if it changes into over time. Yeah, it got finished. Yeah. Thank you.
So, wait, we are not yet quite finished. We need a couple more minutes because there is a surprise. Christmas is coming. And René is preparing, hopefully. Wait for it, wait for it. Yes. Because this time we actually have presents for the speakers. And we have 4 ebooks as vouchers. So we have voucher codes for them, legal, all legal. And we have 5 T-shirts from Meeting C++ 2025. 1 small, 2 medium, 2 large, if I remember correctly. And maybe the speakers want to think about, so C++ memory management, we heard the review last time. There's GPU programming with C++ and CUDA. The C++ programmer's mindset, I haven't seen that before. And LLVM code generation. So I think this is a book if you want to hook up to LLVM and do stuff like static analysis for your own code base or something like that. Okay, and we have a list because I decided we would give away the presents in the order in which the talks were registered. So who came earlier has better choice, but I hope there's enough for everybody. So please, speakers, come forward and we will figure out who gets what. And to everybody else, thank you. It was a great year. And we will see one another in, I hope, in January. I think we have a tentative. Can we already say we have a tentative meetup
For January? Yes, I think it has been the 21st of January. It's a Wednesday.
Yeah, for a change. We took to heart the criticism that we only had meetups on Mondays and Tuesdays, so we try something else this time. And so hopefully January 21st, and we already have a speaker. So
Yeah.
see you in January.
Yeah, and now, thanks to you. So Robert and we already have this T-shirt and enough of this book, so it's up to you to pick. And yeah, I think we do this then kind of now offline.
Yeah, we do it offline. So please drink more stuff, eat more stuff. We don't want to carry all that.
Yeah, and after that, we close the meeting. Take care that you also clean up the stuff. There is recycling station out there if you need to separate your stuff, and then we meet each other again, either at the pizzeria for those who come with us, or next time, hopefully next year. So thank you all for joining us this year. Has been a great year. We had, Robert said we had 6 speakers who also have been at conferences. So yeah, was an experience, and it's a nice experience every time again. So thank you. I can't say that often enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 20 times it was. Yeah. So now I quit.